He hit a 9-darter on live TV, then vanished. Another lifted a major trophy, only to fall off the map. One fought his way back onto the tour and still disappeared. No goodbyes, no press statements, just silence. Some ran into the law, some ran out of time. One even passed away, and most fans still don't know. What happened to the legends who simply stopped showing up? The truth behind 9-darting disappearances starts now. Corey Cadby wasn't just a rising star, he was a darting meteor. Exploding onto the professional scene in 2016, the brash young Australian stunned everyone by winning the PDC World Youth Championship. Within 2 years, he was already battling with the best, reaching the final of the UK Open and winning his first PDC ranking title. They called him the King, and for a while, that title felt prophetic. By early 2018, Cadby's swagger, raw talent, and scoring power had the darting world buzzing. He was touted as the next big thing, an inevitable fixture in the Premier League, a potential world champion in waiting. But just when the world expected him to soar, Corey Cadby vanished. What happened? After returning to Australia to get married, Cadby ran into a bureaucratic nightmare. His visa had expired, and due to a prior criminal record, renewal wasn't simple. That single issue knocked over the first domino. He missed tournament after tournament, including the Grand Slam, Players' Championship finals, and even the World Championship. The dream run collapsed before it ever really started. Stranded in Australia, Cadby's momentum died. He made a few appearances in local exhibitions, including one where he was photographed being escorted by police. Although that incident was later downplayed, the image stuck. Still, in 2019, he seemed ready for redemption. His visa was approved, he returned, and even predicted 9-dart finishes. He won a development tour event, hinting at revival. But once again, chaos followed. Off-the-hockey issues resurfaced. A missed court appearance for a driving offence in Australia triggered an arrest warrant, and in early 2020, just as the pandemic hit, Cadby gave up his tour card, gone again. Then came the twist. In January 2023, Cadby shocked fans by dominating PDC Q School in Europe. He averaged over 100, beat Karel Sedlacek, and won his tour card back. The King was back. At least, that's what everyone thought. But not a single appearance followed, 0 events played, 12 months passed without explanation, and on January 2024, the PDC officially revoked his card for inactivity. Corey Cadby, for the second time in his young career, disappeared from the darting world with more questions than answers. Still only in his late 20s, Cadby's story remains maddeningly incomplete. A player of supreme talent, haunted by a string of missed chances and personal roadblocks. We still don't know whether the King will ever reclaim his throne, or if that crown will forever remain just out of reach. In 1992, Phil Gilman was a name to remember. The Englishman stormed through the prestigious British Open, defeating giants of the game, including the formidable Dennis Priestley, to claim the title. It was a moment of brilliance that should have propelled him into the darts elite. Yet within a few short years, Gilman vanished. His story is perhaps the most ghost-like of them all. Despite winning a major, he never once appeared in a world championship. That's not a misprint, no BDO, no PDC, nothing. He popped up briefly in events like the World Masters and the World Match Play in the mid-90s, but by 1996, he had completely dropped off the map. No retirement announcement, no news stories, just silence. For nearly a decade, Phil Gilman's name drifted into obscurity, until suddenly, out of nowhere, he reappeared in 2006. He entered a low-profile PDC-affiliated event, the JR plus Vauxhall Holiday Park Norfolk Open. Darts diehards took notice. Was this a comeback? Had Gilman been practicing in secret? Was this his moment to reclaim his standing? Not quite. He lost in the first round to Peter Allen, and just like that, the brief reappearance ended. Gilman quit the PDC immediately afterward, retreating once again into the shadows. No interviews, no post-match explanation, no farewell social post. He simply disappeared, again. Phil Gilman's case remains one of the great enigmas of professional darts. A major title holder who exited the stage not once but twice with no fanfare. His last recorded match came over 2 decades ago. Since then, silence. In a sport full of boisterous personalities and big walk-ons, Gilman's legacy is quiet, almost spectral. All we really have is that golden run in 1992, the brief flare of a forgotten star, and a question that lingers decades later. What really happened to Phil Gilman? Tom the Irish Rover Kirby wasn't just another player, he was a pioneer. In the early 1990s, he became the first Irishman to join the breakaway WDC, which would later become the PDC. That move wasn't just bold, it was historic. It put Irish darts on the professional map and inspired a generation of players to believe that they too could make it on the world stage, and Tom backed it up with results. At the inaugural PDC World Championship in 1994, he reached the quarter-finals. Along the way, he beat legends like John Lowe in group play before finally falling to Dennis Priestley. For several years, he was a regular fixture in the PDC's major tournaments, proudly carrying the Irish flag into battle. But after 1997, Kirby's name started to fade. He vanished from top-level events for several years. It wasn't until the early 2000s that he attempted a quiet comeback, entering qualifiers, playing in the UK Open, even making a quarter-final run in the Irish Masters in 2004. It was a valiant effort, especially for a player approaching his 60s. In fact, he managed to qualify for the 2005 World Grand Prix in Dublin and even reached the last 64 in 2 editions of the UK Open. But beneath the surface, something was changing. His appearances were fewer, his form waning. By January 2007, Kirby left the PDC for the final time. There was no grand goodbye, no statement to fans, it just ended. Less than 2 years later, in December 2008, Tom Kirby passed away at the age of 61. He had been battling pancreatic cancer. The news was a gut punch to the darts community, especially in Ireland, where he was revered as a national icon. But his story didn't end there. In a powerful gesture, the PDC renamed the Irish match play in his honour. Now called the Tom Kirby Memorial Trophy, its winner earns a spot in the World Championship, a fitting legacy for a man who opened the door for so many. Tom Kirby's disappearance wasn't one of scandal or mystery, it was one of quiet decline and eventual loss. He didn't chase the spotlight and he didn't demand applause, but his name lives on, etched into the very structure of the sport he helped shape. In the annals of darts history, few names carry as much raw charisma and unfiltered legend as Jocky Wilson. The Scotsman wasn't just a player, he was a cultural phenomenon. With 2 world championships under his belt, one in 1982 and 1989, Wilson became the pride of Scotland and one of the sport's most beloved figures. He was electric, unpredictable, and completely unforgettable, which makes his sudden disappearance all the more shocking. In December of 1995, at the age of only 45, Jocky Wilson retired from professional darts. No warning, no countdown. One day, he was on stage, battling the best. The next, he was gone. What followed was not just a retirement, it was a vanishing act. Wilson retreated completely from public life, moving back to his hometown of Kirkcaldy with his wife. He left behind his home in England, gave up his possessions, and settled into a quiet life with little more than suitcases. From that moment forward, he became a recluse. For 17 years, Jocky Wilson was rarely seen in public. He declined all interview requests. He skipped every darts exhibition, reunion, or Hall of Fame ceremony, not even a cameo. He didn't want to relive the past or stand in front of the cameras again. His retreat was total. The only fragments fans received were whispers, rumors of ill health, of diabetes and respiratory issues, of a man struggling in silence. But he never spoke publicly, never returned to say goodbye. In March of 2012, Jocky Wilson passed away at the age of 62 from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. The tributes poured in. Former rivals, broadcasters and fans all paid homage to the legend who had walked away from fame on his own terms. And that's the key to understanding Jocky Wilson's disappearance. It wasn't a tragedy, it wasn't scandal, it was a decision, a rare, solemn act of a man who wanted peace more than applause. While most athletes linger too long, clinging to the spotlight, Wilson vanished at his peak and never looked back. In a world where most champions chase legacy, Jocky chased quiet, and in doing so, he may have written the most hauntingly beautiful exit in darts history. John McGawan's story doesn't begin in youthful glory. It begins with defiance of age. A proud son of Northern Ireland, McGawan became a symbol of longevity in darts. While many players peaked in their 30s or 40s, McGawan was busy making headlines well into his 60s, and not just competing, winning. In 2005, at the age of around 63, he reached the quarter-finals of the World Grand Prix in Dublin. A year later, he produced one of the most unforgettable runs of his career by making the semi-finals of the UK Open. Along the way, he defeated younger, faster opponents who never saw the grandad with a dark case coming. It wasn't just inspiring, it was electric. Then in 2008, at the astonishing age of 67, he etched his name into the record books by hitting a perfect 9-darter at a PDC Players Championship. He became the oldest player ever to achieve the feat in professional competition. Fans couldn't get enough of him. Commentators praised his cool demeanor, and fellow pros admired his consistency and sportsmanship. But even legends can't beat time forever. In 2011, while still holding a tour card, McGawan qualified for the UK Open, only to withdraw before playing a single match. A serious hip injury sidelined him, and just like that, his professional career effectively ended. There was no official retirement, no press release. During a broadcast later that year, commentator John Gwynn mentioned in passing that McGawan appeared to have retired, and that was that. Since then, John McGawan has lived life quietly. Occasionally, he's been seen at local exhibitions or amateur events, but he never returned to the big stage. Now in his 80s, he remains one of darts' most graceful disappearances, a gentleman who gave his all to the game and stepped away with quiet dignity. There were no scandals, no implosions, just a final silent walk away from the spotlight. For fans, McGawan's disappearance is tinged with respect. In a sport that celebrates youth, he stood tall as proof that age is just a number. And when his time came, he didn't cling to the jockey. He let go, leaving behind a legacy built not on flash, but on sheer perseverance. Mike Gregory's name will forever be linked with one of the most heartbreaking matches in darts history. It was the 1992 BDO World Championship final. Gregory had 6 darts at double to claim the title. 6 chances to change his life forever. He missed them all. Phil Taylor didn't, and the rest became legend. But for Gregory, that moment wasn't just a missed opportunity, it became a haunting turning point. Despite the crushing loss, he remained a top-tier player in the early 90s. He won the UK Masters twice, in 1992 and 1993. When the darts world split, Gregory initially joined the rebel WDC, which later became the PDC. But in a move that stunned his peers, he reversed his decision and returned to the BDO shortly after. That switch created controversy and may have disrupted his momentum. Still, he managed to win the Unipart European Masters in 1995, one more major triumph to his name, but that would be his last. From there, his appearances in big events grew sporadic. His form slipped, and by the time the 1999 BDO World Championship rolled around, where he suffered a first-round loss to Martin Adams, it was already clear Mike Gregory's era was ending. And then he vanished. He stopped appearing in televised events, stopped making deep runs in tournaments. While others his age lingered on the circuit, Gregory faded from the public eye. There was no official retirement, no farewell match. He didn't re-emerge for exhibition tours or veterans events. He simply disappeared. Quietly, completely. Rumours of a comeback would pop up now and then, whispers at county events, hints in local pubs, but Gregory never returned to the big stage. In 2022, Mike Gregory passed away at the age of 65. Tributes poured in, mostly from those who remembered his brilliance in the early 90s and the devastating loss to Phil Taylor. But by then, he had been absent from professional darts for more than 2 decades. His disappearance wasn't dramatic or scandalous. It was soft, subtle, just like the man himself, the quiet man of darts, a player of immense talent who never quite claimed the crown and who stepped away from the game without a word. For fans, he remains a symbol of what might have been, of how one match, one moment can define a career, and how some stories end not with a bang, but with silence. If darts were a movie, Chris, Mace the Ace Mason, would be the guy with a magnetic presence and a self-destruct button in his back pocket. He had the scoring power, the swagger, and the raw ability to become one of the sport's biggest stars, and for a while, it looked like he might do just that. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Mason made back-to-back semi-finals at the BDO World Championship. Then in 2003, he reached the quarter-finals of the PDC World Championship, right in the heart of Phil Taylor's reign. He had the tools to be a contender, but what he didn't have, at least not consistently, was control. That same year, Mason's rising career took a brutal detour. He was convicted for his role in an aggravated burglary, a violent incident stemming from a personal dispute. Mason was sentenced to 3 years in prison and served about 1. When he returned, the world had moved on, but Mason hadn't given up yet. In late 2004, he re-entered the circuit, showing flashes of his old brilliance. He reached the quarter-finals of the World Grand Prix in Dublin and started rebuilding his career. But the turbulence continued. In the 2007 PDC World Championship, Mason lost to Phil Taylor in a heated match. Afterward, he allegedly swore at Taylor during the handshake and was fined and given a suspended ban for the outburst. It was the kind of controversy that had become all too familiar in Mason's career. Then in 2010, the headlines returned. This time, Mason was convicted of benefit fraud. He had failed to declare around £45,000 in darts prize winnings while claiming government assistance. It was another blow to his already fragile professional momentum. By the end of that year, Mason had seen enough. While working as a commentator during the 2010 Grand Slam of Darts, he announced that he would retire from professional play after the upcoming World Championship qualifiers. He openly admitted that his motivation had dried up. And just like that, the curtains closed. Mason didn't vanish entirely though. He shifted seamlessly into punditry, becoming a familiar voice on ITV's darts coverage. He still appears at the occasional senior exhibition or nostalgic throwback event, but these are footnotes, not comebacks. His disappearance from the competitive stage wasn't sudden, but it was complete. And while he never formally retired with a dramatic farewell, he made his choice clear. The chaos of tour life was behind him. Today, Chris Mason remains close to the game, but at arm's length. His is a story of great talent, marred by personal demons, yet salvaged through reinvention. He may have stepped away from the Jockey, but his voice still echoes through the sport. He both electrified and disrupted. Jamie "Jabba" Caven never made headlines with wild antics or brash declarations. He wasn't the loudest player in the room, but he might have been one of the toughest. Born with one eye blind due to a freak accident in childhood and later struck by pancreatic illness that left him diabetic and insulin dependent, Caven overcame more than most just to get to the Jockey. And once he got there, he stayed. Throughout the 2000s and especially during the 2010s, Caven was a consistent presence on the PDC Pro Tour. He racked up 7 ranking titles, including 6 Players' Championship events, and made deep runs in major tournaments. His best showings came in the UK Open, where he reached the quarterfinals in 2012, and in the European Championship, where he twice made the same stage. He never broke into the Premier League. He never hoisted a televised trophy, but every week, every season, Jamie Caven was there, battling, grinding, winning, and proving that resilience mattered as much as raw talent. Then, almost silently, it all stopped. In 2018, Caven failed to qualify for the World Championship for the first time in a decade. It was a crack in the armor, a signal that the rankings were slipping. The following year, he lost his tour card, falling outside the top 64. For many players, that would trigger a storm of media speculation. For Caven, it triggered silence. He tried to bounce back. He entered PDCQ school multiple times, hoping to reclaim his spot. He even briefly dabbled in BDO events in 2019, but with that organization falling apart and results failing to improve, those efforts faded quickly. And then, Jamie Caven disappeared from top-level darts. There was no formal goodbye, no emotional farewell interview, no last hurrah. He simply stopped showing up. While others speculated about his future, Caven quietly shifted gears. He stayed active behind the scenes, coaching young players, appearing at exhibitions, and staying involved at the grassroots level. But on the main stage, the world where walk-on songs and camera flashes defined careers, he has not been seen since. His story is not one of scandal or tragedy. It's one of a man who gave everything he had for over a decade, and then, when the results stopped coming, bowed out with grace. For fans who remember Jabba, he will always be the fighter who kept turning up. Through illness, through setbacks, through silence, and maybe that's the most dignified kind of disappearance of all. Joe Murnan never courted headlines. He didn't light up arenas with flashy theatrics, but for a moment he was right there, standing toe-to-toe with the best and lifting a PDC trophy. It was May of 2015, and the Englishman stunned the field by winning a Players' Championship event in Crawley, bagging a £10,000 prize and beating top names like Dave Chisnell and Stephen Bunting along the way. He wasn't just lucky, he was composed, clinical, and utterly deserving. That win earned Murnan a debut at the World Match Play and paved the way for his first World Championship appearance in 2016. He made the last 32 and looked set for a solid career. For a few years that promise held. He hovered around the margins of the top 64, qualified for majors like the World Series finals, and continued to notch the occasional deep run in floor events. But he never quite broke through. By 2017, the cracks were showing. He lost in the opening round of the World Championship, and his ranking began to slide. At the end of 2018, Murnan dropped out of the top 64 and lost his tour card. But to his credit, he bounced back immediately, reclaiming it through Q School in January 2019 via the Order of Merit. Still, the pattern was becoming clear. Flashes of success, followed by downturns, followed by scrappy comebacks. In 2020, he reached the last 16 of the UK Open, a reminder that his darting instincts were still sharp. He even qualified for the 2021 European Championship and returned to Alexandra Palace for the 2022 Worlds, scoring a solid win over Paul Lim. But after that, the light dimmed. By 2023, Murnan's appearances had grown rare. He exited the UK Open early, made only one European Tour event, and withdrew from another for personal reasons. At the end of that season, he again lost his tour card, his third time falling off the circuit. In January 2024, he tried Q School once more. This time, he failed to regain his status. And just like that, for the first time in over a decade, Joe Murnan was not part of the PDC Pro Tour. Today, he competes in challenge tour events and local opens, still playing, still grinding, but the television cameras are gone, the grand walk-ons are over. Murnan hasn't announced a retirement, he hasn't really said anything. Like his rise, his disappearance has been quiet, almost gentle, no implosion, just absence. His story is a modern reminder of how brutal the margins are in professional darts. One win can change your life, but one bad season can put you right back on the outside looking in. Joe Murnan didn't crash out, he faded. And maybe, just maybe, he's still hoping for one last shot. But while these legends faded, a new force has stepped in and stolen the show. A teenager, a phenom, a marketing machine.